Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
Folks, welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. Hope you and yours are well. Heck of a week, lots to talk about. But overnight, actually, we get caught out a wee bit here. But we feel it probably has to be discussed, and that's that today the US and Israel started a war with no prior knowledge. Just well, we knew it was coming, but without going through the proper channels and breaking international law, started a war by attacking Iran. It makes the world a more dangerous place today.
Yeah, the world is a more dangerous place today, but we've been saying for a while on this programme and on others that it would appear that the President of the United States is so enthralled to the state of Israel that he's prepared to carry out attacks on innocent civilians for no other reason than what would appear as the blackmail that the Israelis have over Donald Trump. This would appear to be the centre of things. Is it a surprise that a man as narcissistic as Mr. Trump is would be prepared to sacrifice the lives of innocent people simply to maintain his own somewhat tarnished reputation? But that would appear to be the situation that international affairs are now carried out on the basis of how much blackmail has Israel got on you, and you respond in the manner Israel requires. The tragedy today, of course, is the innocent lives that will be lost, not just in Iran, not just in Israel, but throughout the Middle East, all for the sake of protecting one particularly odious individual's reputation. It's a tragedy.
You're on mute, Roddy.
Find myself another quid. That's getting, I think the dementia's setting on. That's what it is. Yeah, it's tragedy that anyways, my position, you all know my position, and I'm an anti-war completely, but missiles are landing in the UAE where my children and grandchildren are gathered, and I've got to say that I've been, shall we say, somewhat upset about and worried about the family, because these damn missiles might be great, but some of them can go amiss and they miss their target. That's the worry. So obviously it's a personal concern, but overall, Eva, the fact is that this, war that attack on Iran, the ramifications it has. Now, people might be watching this thinking, well, why are we talking about it through a Scottish prism? But it could have ramifications for us here in Scotland as well. Well,
you've support in that regard, Roddy, from many people around the world, including Yanis Varoufakis, who'd said a wee while ago, the world's two rogue states, Israel and the USA, have started a war not against Iran, but against the whole world. And nothing could be more accurate than that. Obviously, there's reports this morning to the effect, as we all know, that there were negotiations ongoing, and the answer should have been to continue to negotiate, not to launch an attack which is quite clearly designed to kill and maim a lot of innocent civilians, and is designed to attempt to achieve the overthrow of the government and regime change of an ideology, which we all know is not a democratic government, and there are an awful lot of things about the Iranian government that we would criticise, not least issues in respect of the treatment of women. But beyond that, yet again, it's the USA and Israel trying to impose their will and their desire for their own self-interest, and it'll affect the rest of the world. There's already concerns that the Houthis and Hamas, if they're still a force at all, will join in, and that a lot of other countries nearby, a lot of their neighbours, will end up being harmed and unfortunately participating in a conflict which has the potential to bring the world to a premature end.
That's the worrying thing. It's so close to that. I mean, all it would take possibly, Phil, is one of these ballistic missiles, the hypersonic ones that they can't defend against, to hit, say, the USS Lincoln, which is coming under attack, we've heard, and sink 5,000, sink the boat with 5,000 on hand, and the Americans might be tempted to go nuke.
That's horrific. This is us. This is those who represent the West. This is the retention of the Western hegemony, which is the US petrodollar, the US, and it's not just Trump. It's all of these presidents for a long time are in the hands of the lobbyists, which have gradually been taken over, and more of them are loyal to Israel now. And so we have Ukraine fighting Russia on the behest of the West. We have Israel controlling the Middle East on behalf of the West. And we need to remember this. This could go nuclear. It very nearly did, Roddy. I mean, I think it was the 13th of September 2024 when Starmer flew to meet Biden in the White House, where they discussed whether to grant Vladimir Zelensky permission to fire long-range missiles into Russia. And the fact of this is that to do so, where it be the Storm Shadow or the American attackers, it has Western military fingerprints all over it. The Ukrainians couldn't do it themselves. And the Russians issued a warning about this. This is tantamount to war. And they said, if you do this, if nothing is off the table. If you allow these guys, basically you, the West, America and Britain are attacking Russia directly. Now, Russia's been the adult in the room here. Iran has been the adult in the room here. And it's not just the egotistical, narcissistic megalomaniac that is Donald Trump. It's the system. Our system is corrupt to the core. The West is corrupt to the core. We're starting wars all over the world. It's disgraceful. And, you know, the attack on the Lincoln, the carriers, etc., American lives will be lost. And that's what, sadly, it will take. That's sadly what it will take to stop the bully that is the West from rampaging around the world and knocking crap out of everybody. It's appalling. But I'm afraid American lives have to be lost. So the American public wake up to what their government is doing in their name, illegally, because they didn't go through the proper channels, as was mentioned, did not go through the Senate. And sadly, we all of us risk, as we did in 24, we've came so close to nuclear war. The doomsday clock is seconds away from the demolition of the planet and the wiping out of the human race. And these people are doing it purely through greed because they don't care. Why do you think you're looking at these billionaires building space rockets to get the hell out of here? I think the deal was supposed to be we don't bomb Australia and who survives goes to Australia. But with the amount of nuclear weapons around, there's every chance that the whole of the planet will be completely wiped out. It's horrific, absolutely horrific.
Yeah, scary, Alan. You know, Phil uses the word corrupt and hypocritical, and it's true. I mean, one of the big shows the Americans have, how they were negotiating with the Japanese in 1941. You know, during those negotiations, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, and this will live in infamy forever. Whereas when the United States do it, there's absolute silence, and their allies, the hypocrisy. I mean, the same people who were shouting about the unprovoked attack in Ukraine will be absolutely silent or will be cheering on the Americans and Israelis in this conflict. That's the hypocrisy we live in the West.
Yeah, I mean, it's hypocrisy, but also exposes the lies. It wasn't long ago when Donald Trump was telling us that America went in and took out the Iranian missile system. If that was the case, what jurisdiction did they have going into that for today? That is just mass murder. That's all it was intended to do. And, I mean, Trump, and it frightens me with Trump, because it is no coincidence that this happened when the same week it was exposed that there's 50 pages of a document missing on allegations that Donald Trump sexually assaulted a 13-year-old girl. Now, Donald Trump's name is all over those Epstein files. So is many of the world leaders around the whole of this world. And they're all coming together now and creating a war. The only other thing that they now have in their arm for deflecting everyone away from these Epstein files is the nuclear bomb. Trump must be removed from office immediately. Now, he's already trying to manipulate the midterm elections so as the Democrats do not get both houses. That is dangerous because he has to be, if he's not removed from the Republicans, he has to be removed from the Democrats. My only fear is I don't think the Democrats themselves have the bottle to do it. Somebody has to remove that man from office as soon as possible. It's just, I mean, he's committing crimes against humanity. He is blowing people up, and it's his first response every single time. And it's all about defending himself, not about defending democracy, not about defending America, because he's not interested in America or democracy. He's interested in himself. And he doesn't want the evidence coming out of the Epstein files. And that is no coincidence. That is just a blatant fact.
The problem is, you say get rid of him, Alan, yeah, and possibly, but, it's the worry is who replaces him. And, let's be honest, if they can, for political nutters, the Americas are in a planet of their own, well ahead. But to get back to, we could just wish to you all that, hopefully things quieten down, that something where are the peacemakers, hopefully. But anyway, back to business, for want of a better phrase, back to matters to hand in the UK. But again, I'm not going to go to Scotland. I'm actually going to go into England, because it was a rather amazing week this week down in Gorton and Denton, Lloyd, where the Greens took a seat for a Labour seat, a very safe Labour seat. I think it was ranked as about the 13th or 14th safest seat in the UK for them. But the swings are quite dramatic here. 27.5%, up on their vote, the Greens to win the seat. Reform at 28.7, getting 14 points. The Labour Party dropping 25. We could assume most of that went to the Greens. But this is quite a remarkable election, and it has heck of a ramifications as well, Lloyd.
It does have ramifications, but not as great as everybody, I think, is perceiving it. We're in a situation where the current government that was only elected less than 2 years ago its ratings in the opinion polls are effectively in the bin. When you look at a by-election in the demographic that particular seat has, it's no surprise that in actual fact people just coalesced around two parties, namely the Green Party and the Reform Party. I think it would be wrong, I think, to assume that the vast majority of the Labour voters who ceased to vote Labour actually went over to the Greens. I think it's pretty clear that there's been a shift from some of those Labour voters going directly to Reform. But I think this suits the narrative of the political classes in the British establishment at the moment. Let's keep talking up the destruction of the Labour Party. Let's keep talking up the destruction of the Conservatives, and effectively create the ground for the delivering of a Reform government sometime in 2028, 29. That's not going to happen in Scotland. It's as simple and as straightforward as that. There can be as much talking up of reform as you like, and you can have the continued repetition of reform's so-called achievements in the opinion polls. But the fact of the matter is that this country will not vote for reform. It will not vote for reform. I don't care what anyone says. The danger lies, of course, because of our mutated polling system for the Scottish Parliament elections, where if you focus on reform, then you're effectively guaranteeing that the reform will get in. All the parties that want to talk about reform are making a huge and enormous mistake. What they need to do is they need to tell the people what they are going to do, not that everyone should vote for them because they are not the Reform Party. My own personal feeling is this, that until the political parties in the Scottish Parliament actually realise what the electoral system is, and instead of looking at it entirely from their own selfish point of view, they recognise that there's a necessity not to vote for the SNP 1 and 2, because if you do that, you will effectively let unionists into the Parliament. There has to be a clear and understandable strategy given to the electorate by the leading political parties, whereby if you vote for the SNP in a constituency, then do not vote for the SNP in any circumstances on the regional list, or it will be a wasted vote. The crisis here is a crisis for England. And what's clear from this by-election is that England has decided partly to go down the right-wing route of reform, and with a failed Labour Party, the only place that the people of a progressive or a so-called progressive view, or from the left, the only place they've got to go is to the Greens. This will not be replicated at a general election. It's too far down the road. And by that time also, maybe people have woken up to the fact that the Greens, as we've discovered in Scotland, are not quite the cuddly tree huggers that we all thought them to be. In actual fact, a vote for the Green Party is extremely dangerous, particularly in relation to the rights of women and girls.
On that. I was actually, to bring me on a bit, Eva, I was actually going to, my question to you is, with recent results down in England and in, some in Scotland as well, I was going to suggest actually that the reform bandwagon has been halted, and this vote, I would suggest, points towards that they didn't make the big massive breakthrough here, and they threw everything at this. They had a television newsreader on it, a high profile candidate. They had all sorts, and they threw all sorts of money at it, but they just didn't break through. I would suggest that the public in England already are waking up to the fact that all that glitters is not gold.
I don't think there's really any doubt about that, Roddy. You're spot on. Their attraction or their star is beginning to wane, if I put it like that. And the importance from a Scottish perspective is we don't want them to get a foot in the door. I mean, obviously, there's recent polls that strongly suggest that Reform are in line for the best part of a couple of dozen seats that they'll get off the list. I sincerely hope that the Scottish people are that daft, quite frankly, because Reform have got nothing concrete to offer that's positive for the people of Scotland. I don't want to see Greens being elected for all the usual reasons. The Green Party of England and Wales at times is just as dangerous as the Green Party in Scotland, albeit that they operate as separate parties. But there's been court actions and tribunals and the like in England and Wales relative to this ideology in respect of gender recognition and the notion that a woman is anybody who says that she is. And to quote John Nicholson, you're a lesbian if you say you are. It's that nonsense that has infiltrated the Greens north and south of the border, and people should think very carefully about whether or not they're worthy of consideration of a vote at all, particularly because they say that independence is not a red line for them. So to get back to your point of your question, Reform, there's already people left Reform to go to Restore. So it's quite clear that the Tory party presently is finished, and their supporters and their voters are leaving in droves to find something somewhere that's a more right-wing home. But there are people that would have voted for Labour that thought that they were tending towards the right in terms of the Tony Blair New Labour concept that are disappointed, not just with Starmer, but also with Sarwar. So the election in May should be an election where we're fighting for the heart and soul of what is the Scottish political psyche. And it's evident that more than 50% of people support independence. Well, the only way to deliver independence is to do it at the ballot box, and we can do that in May. And we do that with the United campaign that we speak about week in and week out, where you vote for an independent supporting candidate. In many respects, that will mean not voting SNP, because you'll know perfectly well from previous experience that your SNP candidate or your SNP incumbent has done nothing since 2014 to advance the cause of independence whatsoever. So if you want away from the British warmongers, from Keir Starmer, who has not yet, as far as I'm aware, condemned the actions of the Americans and the Israelis this morning at war. If you don't want associated with illegal wars, if you don't want associated with illegal, premature, wrong-minded attempts to impose regime change, you'll vote for independence and look forward to Scotland being a peaceable, peace-loving country that can stand on a world stage equal to others, no better but no worse than any others, and can really carry the candle, keep the flame alive for peace and for democracy and for sensible negotiations that are focused on the good of all the people of the planet, not the few Donald Trumps that exist to the detriment of all others.
Here. No coincidence either. Not only Reform and Restore fully ex-Tories, they've both got shades of blue for their party colours. They just can't let go. They are Tories, folks, by any other name. And that's just a fact. They might be falling away in the polls. I think this is slightly different. I disagree with Lloyd slightly, because usually when it's Labour or the government, the Tories do a bit better. or sometimes the Liberals get the vote, but it's not going to these three. These is going to, out to the Greens, which I think is quite, right off course there and normal. Do you think there's anything special about what's happening with the political world just now?
Who's that?
Phil, sorry.
Well, for me, I mean, this is the Zach Polanski effect, and he is impressive. Notably, as has been pointed out by Eva and Lloyd, he's not the Scottish Greens. We have woke children in charge here, and it is dangerous to vote Green. You set back the rights of women and girls to the Dark Ages, effectively, and Restore is moving even further to the right. This is the Overton window. So the Overton window is the range of subjects and arguments politically acceptable to the mainstream population at any given time. And it's been moving right since Thatcher, just before Thatcher, when the right-wing think tanks started moving what was an acceptable range of policies, and spoon-fed them into the British psyche of the people. So for me, this result here, I mean, this was the sixth largest Labour majority to be overturned since the Second World War finished, and that was nearly 100 years that the Labour Party had this. It is the deconstruction of the Labour Party. I think that's the only significant thing. Is there any change? No, because the Greens, for me, are a party. Basically, when you look at wokeism, the first politician to really push it forward was Hillary Clinton. All this wokeism in the States, and it caught on here, and it is exactly what your standard politician will do. Your career politician will jump on the bandwagon because it's virtue signaling. That's what it is, without understanding the truth or the true impact of it. For example, the forced migration of people and the imposition of larger amounts, and that's the perception of larger amounts of immigrants to set the people against the people. Our problem here is not immigrants. The problem with the West, it doesn't arrive in boats, it arrives in private jets. The reality is the elites are setting us against each other, divide and conquer. So in terms of the political structure in the UK, nothing's changed other than the Overton window continues to go right. It's creeping and has been creeping ever thus right since Thatcher's time.
Alan, I mean, one of the other things that really came out of this was Starmer, who said the Labour Party lost because of the extreme right of Reform and the extreme left of the Greens. I mean, it's quite bizarre. He blames the extreme left and the extreme right for Labour's loss, instead of saying, you know what, we got it wrong.
Yeah, because, I mean, Labour put the final nail in their coffin when they refused to allow Andy Burnham to stand there. All because Starmer seen him as a threat to his own position. That was Starmer putting himself before his party or before the country and before the constituents in that election. But what is really unfortunate in England is you have the downfall of the Tory party, the downfall of the Labour Party. But what is the alternatives to that? People were going out to that election, a lot of them who believe all that's wrong in this country are foreigners, who then voted for a party funded by foreign money. And the other ones went in and voted for the Green Party, voting against women's rights. The choice in England is lacking. They don't really have a choice, and that is a big problem. But here in Scotland, I mean, we keep hearing about the rise of reform, but the unionist vote isn't going up. It's just transferring.
Exactly, yeah.
So, I mean, the unionists are not a threat. The only threat in this country is how the list vote works. And if the SNP continuously call for the second vote on the list, they are the ones who will put reform into the Scottish Parliament, not voters, the SNP. That's why it is so important to use your second vote wisely. Now, in Scotland, we do have a choice. You do not have to hold your nose and vote for a party opposed to as opposed to women's rights like the Greens. You have another alternative, and it is the Alliance to Liberate Scotland, who have got one thing on the ballot paper, and that is independence. We also have other people who I don't know why I cannot fathom this out, but think that they can get independence if they join and stand and vote for a British party who claim to support independence referendum. The Labour Party for 100 years promised home rule. The leader of one of these parties, the Workers' Party, not only took credit claiming that he was the one who stopped Scottish independence in 2014, he campaigned against devolution in 1979 and supported the 40% rule that overturned the yes vote in that year. So you're now trying to tell me that this man is dedicated to Scottish independence? I think you want to button up that back of your neck, because you're a nutcase if you think that. The only way to get independence is to vote for it, and it's through a Scottish party.
The ones that I'll mention, if you do still think that, I have a bridge that I'm looking to deliver. You send me your details on your bank account, we'll get that sorted. What they were doing, right up until even the polls closed, Lloyd, they were telling us it was a two-way race in Gorton by-election between Labour and Reform. Two-way race, and then the Greens won it. But two things, yeah, the opinion polls were either way out, you know, they got something wrong and they're waiting, or it was rigged. There can be no in between.
I think the volatile nature of British politics at the moment is exposing the opinion poll racket for the racket that it is. I mean, even you know, the great guru John Curtis was all over the place on this one. Nobody really knew what was going on. I think there's an awful lot of chit chat. People keep telling you what a constituency is like and what this part of it's like and what that part of it's like. I mean, constantly during the run up to this election, we've had the constant breakdown of the demographic. There are X amount of Muslims. There are X amount of Bangladeshis. You know, rather than recognising that every electorate everywhere isn't divided particularly on religious grounds, as they tried to tell us it was, but everybody has the same kind of concerns. I think more than anything, what this particular by-election tells us, it tells us that there is flux in British politics at the moment, which the political class are finding very, very difficult to understand. And I think they're finding it difficult to understand because there's a conflation of issues. We've talked earlier about the Epstein files. What we've not mentioned yet is the whole Mandelson issue. The Mandelson issue, which is linked to Epstein. But you know, do people not understand that what happened in that by-election didn't happen in absolute isolation? You know, the arrest of Peter Mandelson, the creator of New Labour, that didn't happen in isolation. The people in that particular constituency know very well what has been going on for the past few years. But what the political class, and what I mean by that primarily is the bubble around the political class, which is primarily the media, all of those people who have been lauding Lord Mandelson for the past 2 decades have now had to suddenly discover that he's not the nice guy that they thought he was, or he's not the pal that they thought he was. And they're having to reassess their whole approach, and are finding it extremely difficult because they, like many others, will have to admit they got it wrong. And what we do know about the political class, be it those that are elected or those who are in the functionary kind of support roles like the political media, that they all are caught up in exactly the same little world. They're not connected to ordinary people. It's, you know, this by-election shows that the political class, particularly those in the media, are totally and completely out of touch with ordinary voters. And that's why they got this so badly, badly wrong.
Indeed. I mean, I saw one English influencer, a Greek analyst, putting out saying, this is what the UK has come to, that people are voting by their religion. And I put down my reply to him and said, the people in Northern Ireland will be shocked to hear that people vote along religious lines. You know, this is a guy obviously with his finger on the pulse, what's going on. But another thing you noticed, Eva, when there's an election comes up that the people in the West don't like, they can immediately try and delegitimize it and say, you know, it was wrong. It was, you know, Putin's victory or the Crimea referendum, or if Orbán wins, they'll be saying it was a rigged election. They always do that, but they're starting to do it now here. And I don't know if you'd ever heard of them, the democracy volunteers who were accredited to go to the polling stations, who come up with this thing about family voting, Eva, where they were saying the vote, they were implying that the vote was swung by, they were implying Asian families and daddy telling them all how to vote. I've never heard of this democracy volunteers or encountered them in my years. Have you?
Never heard of them until this week. But the information or the intelligence that they provide is laughable were it not so serious, because the figures that they quote are minuscule in comparison to the size of the electorate or the turnout. So they're scaremongering. It may very well be racist, or at least bordering on racist, to see some of the commentary that they've made. And again, it's just that kind of diversion away from results to create a false narrative, which you see particularly from the right-wingers. So I was sad to see it. I was sad to see the reports, but also some folk have jumped on this and said, oh, look, this is how it's being manipulated, and it's part of that ongoing horrible discourse about, turn back the boats and all this sort of stuff, and refugees are not welcome here, and that dreadful attitude. So I just think it's part of a greater malaise, and it's an attempt to deflect attention away from the fact that the government of the UK and unfortunately the devolved government of Scotland are performing so very badly at the moment. I mean, one of the things that should have been used this week in terms of voting patterns and how you can change the world should have been much more publicity given to the outcome of the Scottish Government Committee inquiry into how does Scotland advance towards independence, because the report went to the Parliament and noted that there is currently no legal route to independence. And the outcome of the report and the recommendation that was accepted by MSPs was that the Scottish and the UK governments should get together and talk about the right route. What route could be created to independence? In other words, Scotland should go to Westminster with a begging bowl and plead for another referendum after the Holyrood Committee of the Scottish Parliament said, no can do, there is presently no route. So there's nothing quite like telling Westminster, the enemy, that we don't have a way out here, but please could you let us out? And that's what should be being reported over and over again, and it should be indelibly imprinted in the inside of every independentista's forehead, that if you want independence, you don't go to Westminster begging for it. You create the solution in Scotland using Scottish rules. And we go back again to Alliance Liberate Scotland. If there are, politically homeless but independence supporters in Scotland right now who want to get the shoulder to the wheel and increase the prospects of May this year being the independence election, we're all ears. We'll see some of you at Yes United next month, but I want to see more of you out on the streets along with us campaigning in an alliance to liberate Scotland. It's about country over party. It's about what's best for the people of this country. It's not about individual bums on seats where folk are arguing about list places and who's standing there and what order they're standing in. It's about your country needs you now like never before. It's time to roll up the sleeves and get the job done.
This democracy volunteers, were you aware of them when you were a member of Parliament, Phil? I think you're on mute, mate.
Good one. I was indeed on mute. No, this is a relatively new organisation. They certainly weren't there when I was about, and I think they started in 2016, and it's supposedly dedicated to improving the security and accessibility of elections in the UK and in abroad. They're one of the few. They're actually accredited by the Electoral Commission, which oversees obviously elections in the UK. And these volunteers, their mission is to enhance the quality of the democratic elections by advising legislators, administrators, and overseers on how to improve elections for the vote. And what they said was over 200,000 voters across more than 1,300 polling stations in the UK and abroad. The organisation's been involved in observing the electoral process during the general election of 2024, where they present. They were present in about over 200 parliamentary constituencies and over 1,000 polling stations. So they're relatively new. But the issue here is they feel that during the Gorton and Denton by-election, the independent, this supposedly independent election group reported witnessing family voting in 68% of the polling stations they monitored, which affects about 12% of the voters that were observed. And they documented 32 cases in total, including one station with 9 instances of family voting, where exactly daddy tells everybody what to do or mummy tells everybody what to do and everybody follows on, which goes against the rules, but it's been ever thus. I mean, I'll be honest, I was told to vote Labour or I'd get my head kicked in.
Exactly.
Maybe,
Yeah.
So we woke up.
Yeah, but as soon as they suspect that it's the white privileged people are not getting their way, it's immediately suddenly it's a bad thing. I mean, I wonder the question I'd like to know, Phil. I don't know if you got the answer to it maybe before I move to Alan. But who funds them? That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah, that would be interesting to find out.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
And it said it's non-partisan, but that'd be the first.
Funded by GCHQ probably. And sponsors. But Alan, this, I mean, it's never this, as Phil said. They're shouting, oh yeah, it was they only won it by cheating 32 families. But, I mean, we know that in days gone by, the whole household did what Daddy said. And surely the best way we talk about it, it's the one they should be worried about is postal votes, because if ever something was open to fraud, it's the UK postal votes. And surely these people they're accusing, if they were going to do it, they would do it in their own house, with collecting all the betting slips, all the voting slips.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that concerns me here is for many years, anyone can apply to the Electoral Commission to become an electoral observer. Now, I did that for the election last year. I was not a member of any political party. I was not supporting any candidate in my constituency. And I was refused because I was too political. Now, this is an organisation that has been brought out, who have seemingly received permission from the Electoral Commission. Their outcomes of the election, to me, shows political bias. I mean, I would like to see every single one of those memberships that they have for which party they're a member of. And when they talk about family voting, there's many people who have a learning difficulty. And it is their right to have a carer go into the polling station with them and go into the booth to explain how to vote. That is allowed. And how many of these incidences happened, which they are now being accused of family voting? I mean, the other thing, I mean, we remember going out with the SNP in the 70s and 80s, knocking on the door. The woman comes to the door and says, oh, wait a minute, I'll ask my man. Many times did that happen? I mean, often. It's happening very little now. I mean, women, thankfully, are now saying to their man, beat it, I'm voting for this one. So, I mean, things have changed. But, no, I mean, the whole election, this volunteer project, it reminds me, and I don't know what they were doing there, I don't know how they were reacting, but it reminds me of America at the last election, where the Proud Boys were standing at polling stations as an intimidatory tactic. And I'm just wondering whether that was the case in this at this time. Because if it is, that in itself is a criminal matter and should be investigated. But no, I mean, it's reform, because they're the only ones that's really going on this, saying cheated. We were defeated because people were cheated. No, you were defeated because you're crap. Nobody wanted you. That's why you were defeated. Accept it. Be big boys, because the rest of them have had to go through that scenario as well. Fight your case. Don't accuse people of cheating because they are complying with a law which you have made even more difficult to vote, because you have to have ID in England to vote in their elections. In Scotland, for an English election, we require IDs to vote. So don't go down there. You're making it as hard enough as it is for people to vote, to use their democratic right. But on the postal votes, you're spot on with that. mean, something has to happen with the postal votes. I mean, I didn't know until recently that a lot of the postal votes went down to England during the 2014 referendum. Why? Postal votes were always counted at your local polling, your local count. And you always did it a couple of days beforehand. It wasn't a count, it was a verification of postal votes.
Unless you're Ruth Davidson.
Yes, all candidates and their election agents were able to go in there. The votes were upside down, but you were able to see through it. And if there was only a couple of candidates, you could work out who was getting the vote. But it was a criminal offence to announce those votes before the whole vote had taken place. Ruth Davidson, in a TV programme, before the count had completed, said, "We thought that because of the result of the postal ballots." And she got away with it, admitting a crime on national TV, and she got away with it. So come on, if you're going to implement the law and enforce it, do it across the board.
Yeah, can I just pull you up on one thing? It's changed now, Alan, from the part you're saying, they go to the door and the woman says, "I'll ask my man." It's now the guy at the door and says, "When I'll go and ask the missus how I'm going to vote." It's gone 180 degrees, mate. But it's a ridiculous thing. I mean, as long as I can remember, and especially when it was your first vote, your mum went, "Yeah, that's where you vote there." And, the finger didn't influence you, but it was pointing to the right place. So I mean, it's a rather hollow bloody excuse, I would suggest, Lloyd. But if we could move on, because the clock's kicking on, and this is the big one for us today, and I want to discuss it this week. Some of the Salmond papers were, for want of a better phrase for them, were released with a lot of redactions, of course. But what did come out was that Alex Salmond feared prosecution by giving evidence, so factual information. He'd been warned in the Sturgeon probe to James Hamilton that if he gave this, facts, truth, he would face prosecution.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous catch-22 situation that we've discovered exists in our legal system. I'd just like to say, in a kind of broader sense, I find it quite extraordinary that the Scottish Government has fought so hard to prevent these materials coming into the public domain, for people only to discover that a lot of the documents that were already in the public domain have been further or over redacted when they were released in this release of papers. There are papers available on the Scottish Government website which are unredacted and have been in the public domain, connected directly to this case for 5 years. But somehow, after this resistance from the Scottish Government and the forced release of the papers by the action taken by the Information Commissioner, we find that in the released papers already in the public domain, unredacted, are now in this bundle of papers redacted. There is an absurdity about this whole situation, which only serves to make people believe that there is something very, very rotten at the centre of this whole affair. Now, we know, and many people know, that that is in actual fact the truth. Can somebody please explain to me what advice is the Scottish Government taking that makes it continue to dig the hole deeper and deeper and deeper for itself? What do they expect to happen? Do they believe that by continually digging a hole and putting barriers up to transparency in this particular issue, that eventually it will all just go away? I think they do think that. And that's a ridiculous position to take, especially when we know that there's going to be a future court case financially supported that will hopefully get to the truth of the Alex Salmond conspiracy against Alex Salmond. In some ways, the whole Alex Salmond affair is in actual fact the central fulcrum of the problem in Scottish politics, because there's a whole section of people who know that there has been a conspiracy and that it was an illegal conspiracy to bring down Alex Salmond. Mm-hmm. And there are other people who believe that the conspiracy is actually coming from the other side. When we're in a situation where the general public, the polity, are so divided because of the secrecy created at the centre by the Scottish Government, by the Scottish National Party, and by the Crown Office Procurator Fiscal Service. That gets right to the heart of trust in politics and trust in the law. I don't think these people really understand that by playing fast and loose with these particular issues, what they do is they completely undermine trust in politics, trust in the law, and trust in public service, and that cannot be good for the country. Oh, sorry, I've got a frog.
Drink. Get a wee drink. For once, I'd like you to be on mute. Yeah, good man. Lloyd's question, you're our lawyer, our legal eagle, Eva, but if you could, answer Lloyd's question, but the one, going back to my first question, how can it be that when someone is presenting, which obviously is facts, they can say, no, if you do that, we're going to prosecute you? Surely the one thing, it could be is the alphabetes, but their names could have been taken out, but surely the evidence could have been presented.
But the difficulty with this is that, and if we go back to basics and remind ourselves that this is about an investigation to establish whether Nicola Sturgeon had breached the ministerial code. So that's what it's about. So it's really the Sturgeon papers, not the Salmond papers, because it was Nicola Sturgeon who was being investigated. Let's forget the spin here. She was doing an investigation. She's the one who was allegedly at fault. However, the fellow appointed to conduct that investigation was James Hamilton, as we all know. And we now know from the release of papers during the week that he was concerned that because he was not getting complete evidence, his report in due course might be misleading and would not necessarily be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And you see, that goes to the heart of the entire process. Whether it was done deliberately or it arose as a tangential result of the anonymity orders or otherwise, what you've got is a report into the conduct of the First Minister where the reporter, the investigator, expresses a concern that he does not have access to all relevant evidence, and therefore whatever he says at the end might not be accurate. That's what we just can't have. And we can't have that for the sake of justice generally. We cannot have it for the sake of confidence in the justice system, and we cannot have it because of the manner in which this entire process has discredited politics in Scotland. Doesn't matter what side of the constitutional fence you're on, you want to have confidence in your politicians, you want to have confidence in justice, and that's what we now don't have. And interestingly, what James Hamilton had said at one point was he halted progress on his findings because of disputes over anonymity and identification. A number of redactions were driven by court orders for Mr. Salmond's criminal case and Mr. Salmond's successful judicial review, which required that any published material avoid breaching anonymity protections. But in addition to this, what appears to be the case is that at least some of the staff members who had to organise the paperwork, if you like, for Mr. Hamilton had actually been involved earlier and were responsible for some of the actions that were criticised in the course of previous court proceedings. So by no stretch of the imagination is there any credibility attaching to the Scottish Government and the SNP in the manner in which they managed that investigation, because they appear to have appointed to assist in the investigation, in the collating of information, some of the very people whose behaviour was previously deemed to be wanting. So you probably need the lid blown off this in another comprehensive investigation by a team of people totally unrelated to those that have had their fingers all over this for donkey's years.
I mean, when we discussed the Epstein files a couple of weeks ago, Phil, we were saying, You know, if you've got nothing to hide, Donald Trump would show the lot. You wouldn't redact it. So it makes one, you know, I'm not saying it suggests it's the same level as the Epstein files, but all this redaction and hiding stuff and not giving it over, they're not actually helping themselves. They're making everyone, you know, even those who weren't, you know, conspiracy theorists must be thinking, wait a minute, something's not right here.
Yeah, and it's believed that the holder of this, I was going to call it a redaction pen, but it's more of a paintbrush, to be honest, is John Swinney, because he just cut out swathes and swathes of evidence. And remember this, Alex's defence case was never allowed to be heard. It must be heard because, you know, but Eve, of course, is also correct. Even the Herald's saying, a recent headline that summed up what must happen. The Salmond case must continue or the baddies will have won. Now, really but it's also misleading, as pointed out by Eva, because another headline is, frankly, Nicola, we'd love to know the facts of the Salmond case, and that is indeed the case. That has been, I mean, it's 5 years on from Alex Salmond being found not guilty of all the charges brought against him. 5 years on, when the COVID lockdowns kicked off, and he put the country first and said, we'll back off a little bit, and we won't, you know, shout our mouths off about our defence here and the situation while the country deals with COVID. And these were big, big events in the life and times of Nicola Sturgeon, who, as Eva quite rightly states, is the one under investigation. Again, Alex Salmond was cleared of all charges. So, you know, she what does she do now? She goes to the stage, marks these events by going to the stage in a comedy festival, saying that she's in the clear. And this is referring to the conclusion of a protracted police investigation, which simultaneously resulted in her husband being charged with embezzlement. The truth must out, and when it does, it will destroy the SNP government. But most notably, this is yet another lever that the Brits have over the SNP leadership. The strings are connected to the SNP leadership, but they won't be released by the SNP. It won't be forced by the government, because these facts, as the SNP suit the government, because the SNP leadership continue to do what they're told, to deliberately deconstruct the independence movement at the behest of their imperial masters by going SNP 1, 2. It absolutely guarantees that there will not be an independence for Scotland. It's been 11 years. Nicola Sturgeon, John Swinney, Angus Robertson, et al. Are controlled by the British state, and we will not get our independence until we remove these traitors from politics in Scotland.
All these things, Alan, about Alec is coming out now, and hopefully we've got the court case that will go ahead, fortunately, thanks to one man's generosity. But until we drain the swamp, the independence movement is, you know, it needs that cleansing to get, you know, really fully back on track.
Yeah, it does. I mean, in this country, it used to be a case of innocent until proven guilty. That seems to have changed. Under oath, you were supposed to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It now seems to be tell the truth, the whole truth, but only the truth that we want to hear. And to me, if you're not given all evidence in a case that you're aware of, then that is a perversion of the course of justice. You are not bringing everything to the table. And it's not just in political things that has happened. It happened in the Luke Mitchell case, where evidence was withheld. We should not have a justice system that withholds vital information that could change the outcome of any case. Now, my belief is, once we get independence, because I believe independence is the only way all of this will come out, we have to have full investigations into this, and open investigations. Those who are committing a crime should be exposed, and exposed to the people, so as the families of those who are involved have closure. Because until these people are weeded out, people will not have closure on the damage that they have done to their families. Now, you're right with unfortunately, at this present time, with the Alex Salmond thing going on, the party he built too is going under a lot of problems just now. And I have a lot of sympathy for them. And what I would say to them from the Alliance to Liberate Scotland is, we understand that you're going through a lot of problems just now, but we are here as a stopgap for you if you require it. We have a drawbridge down for you. We have a hand open to you that that you could come over and you could help fight the election for independence in May until you get yourselves sorted out. This is not a time to gloat over independence people who are suffering financially through no faults of their own. This is just problems that have happened. So our hand of friendship is open to you to come over, even if it is just for a short period of time to the May election. Independence is what we all want, and we are now a vehicle for you in this short period of time if you require it.
This week, with all that was going on and the election, we saw who's in charge of the Labour Party in Scotland. You would think Anas Sarwar, but no. Wee Doogie literally told Anas to sit down, shut up, and get on with running the wee town council in Edinburgh. If ever there was a case for showing you what a branch manager's all about, Lloyd, that was it.
Oh, absolutely. But let's be honest about this. Douglas Alexander is an extremely bitter, very, very bitter former Foreign Secretary of the British government. At the moment, he's now, what is he? He's effectively the babysitter for Anas Sarwar. You know, how the mighty have fallen. I have no sympathy whatsoever for Douglas Alexander or his sister or any son of the man's who decides that this country should be subject only to the laws and the vagaries of the Westminster Parliament. I have no time for that sort of individual. But what we're seeing is, you know, the complete fracturing of the Labour Party. I mean, I saw the pictures of the Labour Party conference on Friday, and I couldn't believe it. There were less people at the Labour conference than there were at the last SNP branch meeting in my particular constituency. And this is a quite extraordinary circumstance. What's even more extraordinary about it is the absurdity of various people, including Anas Sarwar himself, announcing to the world that he will be the First Minister on the 8th of May of this year. It's a nonsense, a complete nonsense. But I'm always entertained when they, well, yeah, exactly. Look at that. Look at that. The Labour Party in Scotland? For goodness sake. I mean, I remember as a reporter, the first time I covered the Labour Party conference, it was in Aberdeen. And there must have been about 4,000 or 5,000 people there. And that was the Labour Scottish conference. That wasn't the full-on Labour conference. How the mighty have fallen. But then again, you know, when you don't deliver for the people and the people reject you and you go away and you blame the people and you come back and behave the way the Labour Party has done, then, you know, this is what's going to happen. The difference, a big difference for us in Scotland, of course, is there is an alternative for those that are not as heavily engaged in politics as we maybe are. In Scotland, you have got the SNP and you have the other pro-independence parties. In England, they don't have that. And that's why you get this polarisation with the Greens, Reform, Labour and Tories. They don't have options, because the option used to be in England that when in doubt, vote Liberal. Liberals used to win by-elections in England in mid-terms. But ever since they went into the coalition with the Labour Party and brought in particularly university tuition fees, the Liberals are no longer the option that they were in England. So that's why it creates the ground for both Reform to rise and for a spike in support for the Green Party. But it doesn't help us much. The Labour Party in Scotland is a done. It's stick a fork in it. They're done.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, nothing. They don't help themselves, do they either? I mean, here's the latest one. I mean, just sometimes stay silent. The Scottish government, as we know, proposed a bank holiday for Scotland's first game. Excuse me. The Labour Party are voting against the Glasgow City Council to prevent the workers having a day off, saying it's just an excuse for a swally. They don't help themselves, do they?
Well, there's always plenty of money for wage rises for the fat cats at the top. And I include in that chief executive officers of local authorities and leaders of councils who've all had massive rises in the last wee while. I know they'll say that they're authorised by COSLA, But it's only further proof that these sorts of folk are entirely out of touch with most of the ordinary people of Scotland. Relative to Labour, though, no, they don't help themselves. The whole of Scotland would love a day off for any reason, but especially because obviously we're going to win the World Cup this year, so we'll have more than one day off. We'll need several days off. But leaving that to one side, the other thing that Alex Salmond said at his conference was an absolute belter, and it should be up there in lights along with the read my lips, there will be no austerity. Because what he said was, hold your nose and vote Labour.
Yeah.
Is that? But then analyse what he said and what he was directing people towards. He was talking about how well Labour had done before. It was time for change. The SNP, in essence, is a busted flush. We can do better. Oh, really, pal? Let's look back to what happened when Labour were in power in Scotland during the devolution years. We had Jack McConnell sending a whack of money back to Westminster. We had half a dozen council or local authority houses or public houses built in the space of God knows how many years. Look at the NHS in Wales, controlled by Labour, and wonder just how low can they go up here. Look at their ambivalence relative to the bedroom tax or the two-child rape clause, issues about waspy women. Where are they in relation to weapons of mass destruction on the Clyde, to cast the net a bit further? There is nothing positive that Labour can possibly offer for the people of Scotland, bar one thing, and it's my advice to Anas Sarwar today. Anas, hold your nose, create a Scottish Labour Party and join the Alliance to Liberate Scotland. And then you'll be in with a shout at getting a foot in the door to the Cabinet in Bute House. You'll not be the First Minister, but you might be there as part of an alliance whose purpose is, as always, to secure the potential of the people of Scotland.
Independence, nothing less. During all the, as I say, Labour are not helping themselves and they're going down the toilet, but this was a particular classic. They wheeled out one of the ministers to make out that they'd won, not lost.
So there was a big anti-reform majority. If you put the votes cast for the Labour Party alongside the Green Party together.
If you put the votes of the Labour Party and the Green Party together, we won. I love watching all the time, all different parties, how they can turn the biggest defeat into some kind of moral victory. But it's quite pathetic, Phil.
Yeah, I mean, Heidi Alexander, it is embarrassing. There seems to be a thing with the surname Alexander, but
sorry to interrupt you, Phil. Later on in that interview, she then blamed something on the SNP. We're like, wait a minute, this was in Manchester. How could the SNP be getting into trouble for this one as well?
Yeah, well, that's what they do. Labour good and the SNP bad. But the sad thing about Labour, the only thing that's read about Labour and at that conference were the seats, and that's the truth. It's far removed from the days of the ragged trouser philanthropists, in the 40s and 50s, when Labour were the party of the people. That's so changed. It's gone now since New Labour, and it's just moving further right, as we talked about the Overton window earlier. It is embarrassment. It's embarrassment all round for these clowns. And the public holiday. I mean, there is something that they did say that they estimate that the holiday for the Scottish team winning the World Cup or getting to the World Cup is $500,000. Do you know what? People deserve it. It's really, for some people, it's once in a lifetime. This is the first time we've done it since 1998, so it is a good one. Although some authorities, the Western Isles and Moray, did not take it, but no, Labour are. All they do is if SNPC left, they say right, and that's very appropriate because they are right wing now. That's just how it goes.
On that, and another one. This is really. I know this has been investigated down south, Alan, and I don't know if you saw this or not, but this was what they put out. They were making out the Greens were going to, headhunt, if you like, people's daughters into prostitution. I mean, there really isn't a gutter that the Unionists type, the Labour Party will go into. They will go to the lowest common denominator every time.
That's the way the campaign, isn't it? Hate, 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 and lies. Yeah. That's all they ever do. And people have got to wake up to this. I was interested, however, in that woman who's saying that if you count this vote with that vote, it beats that vote.
Oh, belter.
In 2021, the SNP vote, the Green vote, and the ALPA vote come to over 50% of the population. So does that give us then a mandate for independence?
Oh, no, that's different. No, that's different.
Oh, that's what I thought. And Alex Salmond continuously says, like Eva said, hold your nose and vote for the Labour Party to get rid of the SNP. I say go onto the rooftops and shout, Alliance to liberate Scotland and set our country free. Because why hold your nose to do something you don't want to when you could go into the polling station and do something positive and free your country? And it's very surprising, well, not surprising to us, but it will be surprising to a lot of people, that Douglas Alexander, the message boy from Westminster, is able to come and tell the Scottish leader of the Labour Party what to do. He outranks, we've got a message boy, makes a tease, able to outrank the official leader of the Labour branch. That's what Labour think about Scotland. Scotland is not important to them. All you are bums on seats and votes to try and keep them in power so as they could continuously fill their own pockets and help out their friends who are extremely rich and the city of London. So in May, don't hold your nose. Don't vote for something that you don't want. Don't vote against something. Vote for something that is very positive. Vote for what you're wanting, and that is the liberation of our country.
Yeah, well said. Hitting the wrong few buttons here. I got ticking away there. Sorry, folks. The clock's beating us, but there was a few more things we wanted to discuss, and one of them actually was I wondered if any of you had seen the drama, the water firms in the dirty, the dirty water. It's really causing a bit of a stir down south, Lloyd. Could this be the start of Thames Water? Their paper has been described as junk. They are insoluble. They're going to need bailouts. Is it time come to renationalise water?
It's always time to renationalise any of the things that were denationalised under Thatcher. The fact the parallel state of the British economy is directly related to the sell-off of the national assets and the depriving people of access to good and clean water. I mean, this is one of these circumstances where we have to be very, very clear here. The water industry in England is privatised. It's run for the benefit of hedge funds, pension funds, and the City of London. It's not being run for the benefit to provide decent water for the people of England. That's just a fact. Unlike Scotland, we do have charges, but those charges are minimal. But our water is still in public ownership. And it will become a battleground in the not too distant future between the Scottish Parliament, hopefully an independent one, and the Parliament at Westminster. Because if the plans for the AI centres, the plans for the server centres go ahead, there is not enough water in England to cope with these developments. The only places that they can get the water they require for these huge, enormous operations is either from the Highlands of Scotland or from the mountains of Wales. That's a fact. These are the leverages that our people, our government should be applying at the moment to get the best possible deal for our people. Or if we put our heads in the sand, then we're going to see very large pipelines built, taking the clean, fresh water from the Scottish lochs into England to service the server centres and the AI centres.
Yeah.
This is not scare stuff. But remember, we have a second line of defence because our water is still in public hands, whereas in England, it's a free-for-all. We have to fight to make sure that our water stays in public hands and is for the benefit of the people of this country, not for the benefit of some international companies like BlackRock and Palantir.
Correct. In fact, that's it, Eva. The way to do that is to vote for Scottish independence parties on May the 7th. Open and closed.
Well, it's really a no-brainer. If you want Scottish resources to be used for the good of the people of Scotland, and you want the Scottish people to have economic levers, and you want to live in a peaceable, peace-loving country, you've got to take power back into your own hands, and the only way to do that is to vote for independence in May. Don't be duped by promises of something further down the line that will be coming if and when certain things happen, because the power of the people is when the people are united, and you get unity with the Alliance to Liberate Scotland, because we're for country over party every single time without exception, and it's that unity that will deliver, and we can do it this year.
You hear her, well said. As I say, the clock's beating us. Moving on, just a quickie on it, Phil. Your man here was arrested. Lord Mandelson's arrested this week and charged with, the similar charges to Prince Andrew, or Andrew Mountbatten, whatever you want. Do you think it'll ever get to trial?
No. There's the lawyers said that they've argued his arrest was prompted by a baseless suggestion, and he was set to flee and take up permanent residence abroad. There seems not to be truth in this suggestion, said a spokesperson, the Mission de Re, which is Mandelson's law firm. But the Times asked the Metropolitan Police Services for the evidence relied upon to justify the arrest, and they continued to add that Mandelson's overriding priority is to cooperate with the police investigation, and he has done so throughout this process to clear his name. He'll never clear his name. He's on these files, and the big fear is that there's about 6% or 7% of these files being released, because some people who have reviewed the files have said that if they are all released, it will bring down Western democracy. Well, it ain't democracy then, and bring it down, say I, because these people who have been involved in these vile crimes need to be exposed and prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Well said. As time's rolling on, and on this, it's a good news story for a change. The power of the people, just people. This is the same power as you have in May the 7th, ladies and gentlemen. It's the power of the people stopped the Loch Lomond Flamingo Land Resort, and that was, the government said, the Scottish government rejects it, but this was people power. This was the people coming together, solidifying as one, and forcing the politicians to think again.
Yes, it is. I mean, this was a brilliant news. It shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have got to this stage. I mean, people say, what could a single person's idea, how could that take shape? This is showing it. One person started this off, and it roller coasted, built up the support. You had SEPA against it. You had the Woodlands Trust against it. You had the Loch Lomond Parks Board against the plans. The local population was against the plans. One civil servant decided to go it alone and say the planning permission should have been overturned and Flamingo Land should be given the right to do what they were wanting to do. That should have been kicked out a long time ago. But yet again, it shows the political manoeuvring of the civil service. I mean, going back to the water issue, I mean, it's in England, but to bail them out, they'll be using Scottish taxpayers' money for that. The government have also announced that they are giving $41 billion, which is about 30 billion pounds, to Ukraine. At the same time, they are cutting £5 billion off of benefits, £5 billion off of disability benefits, and £1 billion off of mobility benefits to our most vulnerable people in our society. They are paying for bombs while our disabled people can't even get a car to drive them to appointments. That's the damage of this union, and that is why we need independence. And I've said before, it's not a matter of wanting independence. It's a matter of need independence, and we need it now. Let's stop bailing England out. They make their own problems. They could bail themselves out. We shouldn't be dragged into that. Let's look after our own people first.
Yeah. And just before we finish this show, I'd like to extend, on behalf of everyone here in front and behind the camera, to Robert Slavin, a good friend of ours, and his sad loss this week. As they say, thoughts and prayers and all that way. Condolences. And until we see you and yours again, folks, please take care.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.